Welcome to the Straw Hat Social Club, a One Piece recap show. I'm Todd, the One Piece expert, which is a made-up title. It just means I've read the manga, and I'm joined by someone who is completely new to One Piece, the lovely and talented Becca.
I don't think even to this episode, I still have no idea what to say at that point.
It doesn't matter. I will one of these days be able to say that without reading it off a page. But today, you can join us as we wrap up the East Blue saga and chronicle what it's like for two antisocial, introverted people to make a podcast for the first time. I guess my idea here is, since we have finished the East Blue saga, this is definitely like a big milestone. Maybe we can just take a step back for a minute, talk about in general. I got some stuff planned to keep it fun, and I think the first half we're going to do that, just give kind of overall thoughts and recap, like in bigger picture, you know. We've already been through each arc in like very minute detail, so this will be a lot lighter. But then I think for the second half, for anyone who cares, we're going to kind of pull back the curtain and talk about what it's been like making the podcast. Because to me, that's part of this whole thing, you know, because like we said, we're both people who are probably on the spectrum, very antisocial. It's a weird thing for us to be making a podcast, so we could talk about that a little bit. I don't know. How are you doing?
I'm really good. We had like the best breakfast this morning.
Yep. Hit up Maple Donuts, even though we could only eat like half a donut after that sandwich. But it was nice.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, no Krispy Kremes around here, but
No.
I think we'll survive. So I thought, kicking this off, I could give you a little test, since
Oh God.
since you were the one who is new to One Piece.
Oh my God.
I just thought it'd be fun to kind of give you some basic trivia. Just found something online. It's very simple.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. But since you are like the one that's new to all this, I think it would be fun to see like if you could get these questions right.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen, but we'll see.
It might be a fun way to check back at the end of every saga, you know? I mean, they're easy. Like, listen to this. This is question 1.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Sure.
Number 1. I think there's 15 questions, by the way. Monkey D. Luffy ate which devil fruit? The Gum Gum fruit, the Chop Chop fruit, the Slip Slip fruit, or the Plume Plume fruit?
He ate the gum gum.
Oh
fruit.
my God. You're a fucking expert.
I got distracted because I started thinking of those other two fruits that I hadn't heard of, and I'm like, oh, well, I want to know what they are.
Well, you actually have heard of all these.
I have?
Yes.
Oh.
Chop Chop is Buggy.
I know Chop Chop.
Slip Slip is Alvida.
Oh, I thought it was Smooth.
Listen,
Oh, okay.
there are so many different translations, you know, and Plume Plume is Smoker.
Oh, okay.
Question 2.
Okay.
Who is the man who inspired Luffy to become a pirate? Portgas D. Ace, red-haired Shanks, Goldie Roger, or Edward Newgate Whitebeard?
It's Shanks.
All right. So red-haired Shanks. Who is the first pirate crew that Luffy encounters? The Alvida pirate crew, the Buggy pirate crew, the Black Cat pirate crew, or the red-haired pirate crew?
Well, technically it's red-haired, but he saw Alvida. I don't know, where to start there.
Listen, I didn't write the questions. We'll find out.
Okay.
So I'll put red-haired. Next, we got some Zoro questions.
All right.
How many swords does Zoro use to fight? 6, 1, 2, or 3?
It's 3.
All right. Who did Zoro make a promise to when he was younger? Tashigi, Kuina, Alvida, or himself?
Wait, that last one threw me off. Oh, no. I don't know.
Do you want to hear him again?
Well, I know it's either Kuina or himself, but I don't know. I want to say it's to himself.
Okay. We'll see.
That's a shitty question.
I don't know. It seemed kind of simple to me.
Really?
Next, who did Zoro fight during the Buggy arc? Kabaji, Moji, Richie, or Buggy?
Wait, now hold on. What are these questions? Because this is buggy arc. Oh wait, who was it? Can you say it again?
Who did Zoro fight during the buggy arc? Kabaji, Moji, Richie, or Buggy?
Buggy?
Okay.
I don't say that like that.
Nami questions.
Okay.
Which pirate crew did Nami work under since she was a child? The Buggy Pirate Crew, the Black Cat Pirates, the Arlong Pirate Crew, or the Straw Hat Pirates?
Arlong.
All right. I will say I read that in like the initial draft, she was a part of the Buggy Pirates. Oh. And that was when they met her. Oh, okay. I think she also had like a mech arm or something. It's like pretty cool little early design. Anyways, next question. When did Nami first meet and talk to Luffy? In the ship that got attacked by Alvida, in Alvida's pirate ship, when the giant bird dropped Luffy in Orange Town, or in the restaurant at Shell Town where Morgan is? Ooh.
I don't know.
Do you want to hear the selections again?
Yeah.
In the ship that got attacked by Alvida, this is when Nami first meet and talks to Luffy.
Okay.
In the ship that got attacked by Alvida, in Alvida's pirate ship, when the giant bird dropped Luffy in Orange Town, or in the restaurant at Shell Town where Morgan is.
What is the one that's on Alvida's ship? What?
Well, there's the ship that got attacked by Alvida and Alvida's pirate ship.
That feels like a trick question.
Not really.
I don't know.
Which one do you think it is?
I'm gonna say the ship that attacked Alvida.
Okay.
I don't know.
Next question. Why does Nami love oranges? Because her adoptive mother, Belmare, owned an orange farm? Because she just loves oranges? Her favorite color is orange? Or she loves tangerines, not oranges?
She loves tangerines.
Trick question. Good job. Now we got Usopp questions. Who are the three members of the Usopp pirate crew? Pickle, tomato, and onion, carrot, onion, and salt, onion, pepper, and carrot, or avocado, broccoli, and pepper?
My ADHD cannot handle what you just said.
Do you want to read them?
Yes.
It's probably easier for this.
Onion, pepper, and carrot.
Onion, pepper, and carrot. Okay.
I don't know. Now I feel so thrown off. I can't figure it out.
It's not that serious. It's okay. Next. Why is Usopp always lying about pirates coming to the village? Because he hates his village and likes to annoy them. Because when the villagers chase him, it's a good workout. Because when his mom was sick, he used to lie that it was his dad returning. Or because he read The Boy Who Cried Wolf and was inspired to become just like him.
Can I see it?
Yes.
I feel like it's because when his mom was sick.
When his mom was sick, he used to lie that it was his dad returning. Okay? Who was the first fishman Usopp fought and defeated? Chu, Hachan, Karubi, or Momu? See, this is funny to me because since I'm the one that like writes the notes and everything, I'm forced to learn every little detail and you're kind of just along for the ride. Guess you thought you could just sit back and relax the whole time, huh?
Oh, God. I'm going to say Karubi.
Okay.
I can't remember.
Sanji questions. Now, you got to get these. Come on. What was the name of the floating restaurant Sanji worked in? The floating restaurant, the Barati, Zeph's floating restaurant, or Red Legs?
Red Legs. It's Barati.
Barati.
How many more are there?
2 more.
Okay.
Which man from which pirate crew did Sanji feed when he came hungry to the floating restaurant? Don Krieg from Krieg's pirate crew, Pearl from the Don Krieg's pirates, Jin from Don Krieg's pirate armada, or Jin from the Krieg's crew?
I see those.
Yes.
I don't even know. I mean, isn't that the same thing? I don't even know which one would be the one. It's Jin, but I don't know which one.
Which one do you think it is?
I guess the Don Krieg. I guess Jin. Hold on. Jin from Don Krieg's Pirate Armada? I don't know. I don't know the official name.
You don't think it's called the Krieg's Crew?
No, I don't.
Last question. Which was the first lady Sanji hurt during the East Blue Saga? Alvida, Nami, Tashigi, or he didn't?
Sanji never hurt any women.
All right. See what you got. You got 73%. Good job.
Yeah, that's about how I did in school. So.
Yeah. I wonder...
Tests freak me out. I don't like tests.
Does it let me...
You can't see which ones?
Doesn't let me see.
That's stupid. You probably know which ones I got wrong.
Yeah, I don't remember. You got 73% right, which is a very weird, arbitrary number. And
78.
That was 73.
Okay.
Listen.
Listen, that's how I did in school.
Yeah, it also did not give me the correct answers. I think next time we do this, I'm going to have to prepare a little better. But you did pretty good. I think there were a few you definitely got wrong. I remember you said Karubi is who...
I was thinking Chew, but I was... Chew. Okay, well, see, I was thinking Chew the whole time, and I'm like, that's probably not right, so I just picked a different one.
Listen, for someone who is brand new to the series, has just seen the anime, I think you did pretty good. I think most people do not have as much brain rot as me, so you wouldn't know all the little answers, but did a great job. So now that we have determined your basic knowledge level after a arbitrary quiz that I think somebody on the internet just made up, I guess we're ready to get into the East Blue recap. I think what I was thinking for this, we can just generally go through each arc, just give some general thoughts, and what I'd like to do is introduce the major characters that were introduced in every arc, and we're going to decide on who was like the big standout character from each arc. So we could separately do like which of the Straw Hats is like the big standout and which of the like side characters. And when we get to the end, we can kind of rank the major characters, like the best from each arc, and see who is our favorite from the East Blue Saga. And we can also figure out which of the Straw Hats had like the biggest impact on this saga. I think that's something that'll be fun in the long run once we have more of these sagas under our belt. But we can kick it off with Romance Dawn, first arc in the series. This is also the name of the, what do you want to call it? Like the prototype of One Piece. Remember, it was called Romance Dawn.
The pilot?
Sorta. I mean, no, because it wasn't like released officially as One Piece. But Romance Dawn is where we're introduced to Luffy and Zoro. Nami also like briefly pops up in this one. I think honestly that was another question you got wrong because
I just couldn't
it's
figure
fine.
It out.
But the first time that Luffy and Nami really talk is Orangetown. Like,
what
remember?
Answer was that?
It was in there.
The bird?
Yeah, yes.
I didn't think that they talked.
Yes. That's the first time they meet, because remember the bird drops Luffy in the Orangetown?
See, these questions, they were worded like a government exam for getting your driver's license.
I know. Listen, it's not that serious. It's okay. But yeah, in this arc, we, like I said, we saw Luffy, Nami, and Zoro. The major characters from this arc were Alvida, Kobe, little pink hair boy, Helmeppo, and Captain Morgan. So this is the arc. Starts out on Alvida's ship. We get introduced to Luffy. Luffy kicks the shit out of Alvida. Then he heads over to the island with Captain Morgan's Navy base. Remember, Zoro is like held captive there. So Luffy frees Zoro, and together they take down Captain Morgan, who's like this corrupt, evil Navy captain. And everyone's happy, including the Navy, that they took him out. And along the way, we got Kobe, who was Alvida's cabin boy, who is like taken against his will, but he's inspired by Luffy to pursue his dream, so he joins the Navy. And Helmeppo is Captain Morgan's son, a little goofball with the weird bangs. I don't know how you describe his haircut.
Is it like a bowl cut?
I think it's like a bowl cut, but it's kind of long in the back.
Yeah,
I don't know what that's called. I don't remember. But he's like the spoiled little brat who, after Captain Morgan is arrested and taken away, he winds up kind of side by side with Kobe working in the Navy. So maybe we'll see like a turnaround for his character. Yeah, so this was your first introduction to the series, obviously. It's the first arc. What were you thinking during this part of the story?
I mean, really, Todd really wants to watch this, so I'm gonna sit here and watch and see what this is.
Yeah, I remember even me coming from the manga, watching this for the first time. It definitely feels like it is a very specific era of anime. You know, it has a certain look to it. We talked about how like it feels very warm. It's like feels very different from what we see now, where everything is like digital and clean and everything.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it was like kind of jarring, you know, and I think we talked about this before, that I felt like, oh man, I can't wait till we get caught up and get to like the more modern animation. Mm-hmm. But the more time I've spent with this, the more I really like the older stuff. Like there just is a vibe to it, you know. Yeah. It feels very comfy.
Yeah, I think we both were hit with a lot of nostalgia just starting it.
I mean, we're both old as fuck, me especially. So it definitely does like call back to an era from when we were younger, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, things, they kick off kind of slow. We're still feeling out the world, the characters, the vibe. We're getting introduced to all these characters with weird designs, like Kobe with the pink hair, Helmeppo with the bowl cut. Even like Captain Morgan, remember he has that like handle coming out of his elbow and his axe hand. A lot of weird stuff. I mean, what were you thinking about like the character designs and everything?
Well, I think I've stated a lot that I really love the character designs. I think some of them are weird.
Yeah.
But and it's not that means that they're bad. They're just weird.
Yeah, they're very silly, but it's definitely it's a certain style that does kind of set One Piece apart. Because I think, listen, I might get heat for saying this. Because I am an anime fan. I'm kind of a fallen anime fan because I stopped watching anime for a long time for a lot of reasons. I do feel like there's a lot of anime out there that just doesn't feel very distinctive, you know? Like there's a lot of anime that just has this very similar style where a lot of characters can look the same. And for me, when I look at like pictures of anime characters that I'm not familiar with, it's like they all look the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because there is a very specific style that tends to happen. But I feel One Piece, one of the things that sets it apart is that the characters do feel super distinct.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're like humans, like how humans are so distinct and different. And I think it's interesting to see different styles of character design be approached for different types of personalities in your characters instead of one wash of a style.
Well, they tend to be like very cartoonish and kind of silly. Like it feels like it's not like I guess it's one of the great things about One Piece is that there's so much heart to the story and there is so much going on. And like the further we get in the series and we start digging into the political themes and the social themes and all that stuff, like there's a lot going on in One Piece, but it's able to do that while also feeling like kind of silly, kind of laid back. You know, it tackles all these different themes and it captures like a lot of different tones because it can be very silly. It can also be very emotional. That's definitely one of the best things about it is it can go from being like very childish, very goofy to being very serious and really making you angry, making you upset. We both shed plenty of tears. I think that's another One Piece staple. But yeah, so I can remember for me, Romance Dawn feeling like it took me a little time to get used to the tone because it is kind of silly. And like what we were saying with the character designs, there's stuff that I'm a fan of now that I still, especially reading manga where you're not getting the benefit of like the color and everything. There are characters and series that I love that I have trouble like telling apart because they just look so similar. But One Piece has such a distinct style to the character design that I really appreciate and I really give Oda a lot of credit for constantly being able to come up with these new distinct characters that you can just very easily tell one from the other. But back on track, this is kind of where the Straw Hats really get formed, because we saw that early on it was just Luffy floating around by himself, not really doing anything, and somehow he gets Zoro to join him, even though Zoro very quickly is like, wait, hold on. Like when you realize it's like this tiny little boat and it's just Luffy, you see that maybe he didn't really understand what he was getting into. But I give him a lot of credit because he seems to be so fiercely loyal to Luffy, like from the very beginning. You could tell there's a very real connection there. But yeah, the first real battle against Captain Morgan, if you can call it that, because it's not much of a fight. And I don't know, did you have any other general thoughts about Romance Dawn?
I think that it's a really good way of introducing this whole story where, I mean, didn't he literally float up in a barrel?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just, there's so many, like, tiny things that, like, I think really going back and watching it again, which I know nobody really has the time to watch this whole series and then watch it again, really.
Yeah.
But picking up on, like, little things that progress, like the size of his ship. So from a barrel to a little ship to a bigger ship and things that is really cool to see. So, yeah.
Yeah, and also, like, the scale of the antagonists and everything. Mm-hmm. And it is interesting that this kind of sets up the Navy as being the bad guys, but most of the conflict is between pirates in this series, you know. But yeah, so like I said, we were introduced to Luffy and Zoro. We had like a tiny little Nami intro, so I guess we can count her out, because I wanted to ask, who do you think had the biggest impact from the Straw Hats, Luffy or Zoro, in this arc?
I think, honestly, Zoro.
Yeah, he had a really cool intro.
Yeah.
I think I'd agree with that.
Pretty powerful way to introduce him to the series.
Yeah, I mean, he's like being basically crucified when you meet him, which is kind of strange. So I'll agree with you on that one.
I mean, obviously, Luffy is the main character, and he's very silly and goofy, but Zoro just, you really get this air of, like, I don't know, like, power from him when he's first introduced, and I don't know. I find it very interesting. I
mean, as soon as he gets those 3 swords, he just takes down everybody, like, instantly. And I mean, Luffy has plenty more time to shine throughout the series, so.
Yeah.
But then when we get to the other major characters, we got Alvida, Kobe, Helmeppo, and Captain Morgan. Who do you think stood out the most of those characters? I know who I'd pick. I want to know who you'd pick.
I'm back on my ADHD again. They all blurred together for me when you said them. What was it? I wanna say it's like in between like Alvida and Kobe.
Yeah.
For me, probably if I had to choose, probably Alvida.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Interesting. I would have said Kobe, but we can say Alvida. This is a very minor.
You say Kobe.
Listen, is that your? What do you think? I mean, Alvida, like, she's very briefly featured in this.
Yeah, but I think because it was, like, the first kind of
bad guy.
Yeah. I don't know.
I could see that.
But Kobe, the moments with Kobe is really cool, though, too. Because I, you know what, I have to say Kobe because only on the fact that I can tell there's going to be some sort of progression with this character, but I don't know what. And I'm excited to see it. So I think on that alone, okay, Kobe.
Look, didn't mean to nudge you there, but come on. Our pink-haired little man, we got to give him credit.
No, you're right. Yeah.
Okay. So why don't we go from that right into Orangetown? As a reminder, Orangetown was being attacked by Buggy and his circus-themed pirate crew. They attacked the town. All the residents were like in hiding when Luffy gets dropped there by like a giant bird he was trying to eat. But this is when we get properly introduced to Nami, because she is trying to steal from any pirates that she comes across. That's kind of all we know about her character at this point. And she forms this like unlikely alliance with Luffy and Zoro to take down Buggy and his crew. So it turns into Zoro getting his first real like sword fight against Kabaji, And then Luffy fights against Buggy, which isn't like a big threat. It's more like a silly kind of fight, but it is like the first other devil fruit user because Buggy's able to split himself into pieces with the chop chop fruit. And they defeat all them. They save the villagers. And then, of course, we have to point out our little Chow Chow, the little dog with the so human cute. Voice, who plays a big role in this story too.
Yeah,
it's also like a first glimpse at like how Luffy is kind of able to befriend like everyone that he comes across, because even this little dog who like bites him in the face the first time they see each other, they somehow form a connection, and Chow Chow like helps them when they escape. So we don't get any new Straw Hats. I mean, technically Nami, because we mentioned in the manga Nami wasn't introduced until this arc, but in the anime they kind of insert her into Romance Dawn. So we could say Nami's really introduced in Orangetown. But we also get introduced to Buggy. We get Moji, the lion tamer, and his lion Richie. We get Kabaji, who's like a acrobat, who also is a swordsman. We get, of course, Chow Chow. We get Mayor Boodle. Remember him?
Yeah.
And we also get introduced to Shanks for the first time, because this is when we get the flashback. We also learn that Buggy and Shanks had like history together. So, I mean, overall, like, do you have any general thoughts about Orangetown?
I mean, Orangetown was a fun one to watch. I have to say, probably, I don't know where we're going with this, but I have to say, like, Shanks is probably the most standout thing to me here, even though it's not really related to Orangetown.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like every arc has like some kind of flashback. Yeah. It's almost like a trope here that we get some little flashback stuff, and that tends to be some of the most interesting stuff.
Oh, definitely.
I feel like. But yeah, Orangetown, to me, I think this is when we're still kind of getting our bearings in the series, and Buggy is like a really fun character, fun villain, because he initially comes off as being like very threatening, but he winds up being like kind of silly.
Yeah.
You know?
And he was friends with Shanks too, so
there's a very interesting history there.
Yeah. Is that in that arc?
Yeah, that's when they have the flashback stuff. But this is also, I guess it's important because this is when Nami, who makes it clear that she hates pirates and we don't really know why yet, she still starts noticing something about Luffy and Zoro and their relationship, and how like maybe they're a little different. Maybe they're not like the normal evil pirates that she's used to dealing with. So I always thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, we're still kind of getting our bearings at this point, I guess. So it's still kind of fun, kind of lighthearted, still figuring stuff out. I don't know, did you have any like final thoughts you had on this arc?
No, not really. Yeah, I mean,
it's still kind of slow at this point.
Yeah.
But who would you say then of the Straw Hats had like the biggest impact on this arc?
Of the Straw Hats?
Yeah, so far Luffy, Nami, and Zoro.
I feel like Luffy here, because we really get to see him go up against Buggy. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's his first fight against the Devil Fruit user.
Yeah.
But as far as the major characters, again, we got Buggy, we got Moji and Richie, Kabaji, Chow Chow, Mayor Boodle, and Shanks. Like, which character do you think stood out the most?
Well, I mean, obviously Shanks.
Yeah, like, it feels like it's kind of cheating.
I was going to say, like, it's really not fair because...
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Shanks. But if Shanks wasn't in there, I'd probably say Chow Chow.
Yeah, that's what I would say too. But we'll go Shanks. It is his real first introduction, and you can't not choose Shanks. Yeah. Everybody loves Shanks. You got Syrup Village, where we're introduced to Usopp. As a reminder, I think they go here just for like supplies and get wrapped up in this whole thing with we have Kaya, who is like a sick girl living in a mansion, being attended by Klahadore, her butler. We learn that Usopp has like a friendship where he tells her all these like tall tales outside her window since she's sick and can't really leave. And winds up being like this very heartwarming thing. Was there something you wanted to say?
No, I got sidetracked. This is my ADHD.
Sure.
I just realized that Hassan named his dog Kaya. Is it because of One Piece?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Does that make him Klahadore?
Oh my god. Maybe. Could be.
That's we can cut that. I'm just that's on my mind right now.
Yeah, I had a big brain moment just now.
Yeah.
Oh, and Usopp, he has his own little pirate crew here. We see that his father was Yasopp, who is a part of Shank's pirate crew, who left when Usopp was very young. Usopp seems to like idolize him and secretly, well, maybe not secretly, but he really wants to be a pirate like his father.
Yeah, I don't think that's a secret.
yeah. But he has his own little pirate crew. What's it? Pepper, onion, and carrot. Yeah, who all have like hats that look like the vegetables. Another like great Oda character design. But we find out that this whole time, Klahadore the butler is actually Kuro of 1,000 Plans, this pirate leading the Black Cat pirates who orchestrated this whole plan to take Kaya's wealth and escape the pirate life so that he's not like chased by the Navy all the time. Which in retrospect, now that we know like Luffy has a bounty on his head and is going to be pursued by people, we can see how Luffy thinks that's like fun and exciting, is like ready for the adventure, but someone like Kuro, he just wants to be left alone. He's like, fuck all that. So they orchestrate a whole plan with his, I guess, right-hand man, Django, Michael Jackson, you know, the hypnotist.
Yeah.
But they orchestrate a whole plan to try and attack the village, get Kaya to leave her wealth to Kuro so he can live in peace. And the Straw Hats wind up smack in the middle of it. And this is when we really see how it seems like even though they're pirates and they are kind of doing everything for themselves, like in pursuit of their own goals, when they're introduced to situations like this where people are being like oppressed and mistreated, it's like they can't not intervene. I think that's a big part of their characters. And I think they do a great job of making them seem like they are not these totally selfless people. Like to them, like Luffy challenges Kuro because he is in direct opposition of what Luffy considers a pirate to be, you know, because Kuro doesn't care about his crew at all. He only cares about himself. He's willing to give up his name and his title and everything just so that he can have an easier life. And all of that, like Luffy is so disgusted by it and just thinks that he winds up thinking Kuro is like so far beneath him because of all that, which just enrages Kuro, who is like very full of himself. But we get that idea that they get into these conflicts for their own personal reasons, but they ultimately wind up helping tons of people along the way. And I think that's a very important part of One Piece. And it goes into the complex morality that is happening underneath the surface in this like very silly, mostly like lighthearted series. So, I mean, was there anything that like really stood out to you in Seer Village?
I think I would say the relationship between Usopp and Kaya. I think I really enjoyed that. I thought what Usopp did to like entertain her and befriend her is really sweet, and I just really love their like relationship.
Yeah, it's fun that he's portrayed as being this liar. You know, his whole thing in this arc is he runs through the village shouting that like pirates are coming, and everyone just gets pissed off and annoyed because he does it like every day. But the way that he takes that character trait with Kaya and like is telling her like all these big lies and stories, but she just loves it, and it lets her like mentally leave this place that she's like basically stuck in. Yeah. It shows like the other side of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Seer Village was like our lowest ranked in all this, which we'll revisit at the end. But yeah, it feels like it kind of slows things down. The environment's kind of more bland, but there still is a lot that happens here that is fun and really interesting. So, like I said, we're introduced to Usopp, so we got 4 Straw Hats now. Who do you think made the biggest impact in this arc?
I mean, I want to say Luffy again, because Luffy had these like really powerful attacks, And I also, but not only that, he also just had really funny moments too, like when the that part of the ship fell on him. And he like,
and the way that he would get hypnotized like instantly. You know, it just shows the kind of brain he's got going.
Yeah.
I agree though, because I think this is also when we first start to get an idea of Luffy's own morals and like what he believes being a pirate is, like, because it's in such direct opposition to Kuro. That stuff, especially watching it now after reading it, it really stood out to me. And it stood out to Nami too, because we get more moments of Nami straight up telling Luffy, like, you realize most pirates aren't like you. Most pirates are like Kuro. And Luffy, it just does not faze him at all. He just doesn't understand that.
Well, I mean, that's what he was inspired by, was being a good person and hanging out with your crew. I
mean, he was inspired by Shanks and Gold Roger, you know.
Yeah.
But the major characters we get here, we got Kuro, of course, with Django, the Meow Band brothers, of course. We get introduced to Yasopp. We got Pepper, Carrot, and Onion. We got Kaya, and we got Mary, who is her, like, what is he? Because Claudor is like the butler. Is he just another butler?
He's just like a caretaker? I don't know.
Something like that, yeah. He's also the namesake for their ship, which we should mention. This is when they get the merry-go, which... Because Mary kind of has like this goat look to him. It's weird, like his hair and everything. Did you not put that together?
No, not at all. But that makes a lot of sense now.
But that's why it is kind of weird that Mary, this butler, has a ship that's like named after him and has like the masthead that looks like a goat and everything like him.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's like some better explanation for that that just went over my head, but he winds up being this like bit character who's actually super important to this series. Well, just based on that.
Well,
you know? So, I mean, out of those characters, who do you think really stood out this arc?
I probably have to say Kaya. For me, I really like Kaya. And I think it lends to Usopp's character a lot, because you've seen a lot of these characters have counterparts in their flashbacks or their background story that seem to be very important to them. And I feel like Kaya is very important to Usopp.
Oh, for sure.
So,
yeah, she's a great character. And she also seems like very selfless, because she's willing to give up her life and her fortune and everything to protect the village and everybody in it. So let's move on to Baratie, where we get introduced to our main man, Sanji. I think it's worth pointing out again that our first time actually through the series, because this is like our second time going through the early episodes, I remember you were not feeling Sanji at first, because every single time that he simps out for like any female character, you were just like, really? Like, what?
Yeah, it's just like exhausting.
It's very over the top. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's only because, you know, like, I'm not going to get into women's rights right now, but it's just like, man, can you notice anything else about these women besides how they look?
Yeah. I think it is funny, like, because you get a lot of moments where you see there is a lot more going on with Sanji.
Yeah. I realize that now, but I think first impressions, it's like, oh my God, get over it.
It's hard not to focus on that, because it is like so over the top. But I think as you start to learn more about his character and what's going on with him, the parts where he simps out just become like more funny and predictable, you know?
Well, I think what makes it, I don't know, different is like he like worships the ground they walk on. Yeah. And like make sure they're fed and like make sure that they have everything they need. Like he's not just like, oh, you're beautiful. It's like, oh, you're beautiful and I will attend to every need you have.
It is funny to point out, because I feel like, you know, he has some like pervy kind of moments, but it's never like super gross or over the top. It is, like you said, more that, like, I mean, we keep calling him a simp. He does simp out and just wants to like do whatever he can for the ladies in his life. So there's a lot more going on there. But just to recap very quickly, the Baratie is a floating restaurant. We've said it's like this Miyazaki style, like giant fish boat. They head there because, of course, Luffy prioritizes getting a cook for their crew. And so we're introduced to Sanji, who's working under Redfoot Zeph, who is the head chef at this restaurant. They're all like kind of tough as nails. Like, so I think they're established as like some of them are ex-pirates, like some of the people working there. And it's seen as like you kind of have to be if you're going to be working in a restaurant in the middle of the ocean because you're going to run into pirates.
Yeah, now you're just a target.
Yeah. And sure enough, they get targeted by the Krieg pirates who had just left the Grand Line. So this is our big intro to the Grand Line and like how dangerous it is, because that's being set up as like their big goal at this point. But the Krieg pirates are like half dead after the Grand Line, come there to get food, which instantly revitalizes all of them, and they turn on them and try to take over the Barati. So the crew of the Barati and the Straw Hats have to kind of step up to fight them off. We also get a great flashback. This is the first like big, awesome flashback of the series that shows Zeph and Sanji's relationship, how Zeph rescued him and they were stranded on this island when Sanji was very young. And even though Zeph is like, at the time he was known as Redfoot Zeph, this pirate cook who had this like fighting style with his feet, was like very brutal, but he is like very selfless and like winds up giving all of his food to Sanji because he recognizes Sanji and him share the same dream of the all blue, you know, the ocean that combines fish from the North Blue, West Blue, East Blue, and South Blue. So it's like a cook's dream. And everyone kind of makes fun of Sanji for having this dream. They think it's just a, you know, a folk tale or whatever. But Zeph, you see like the big respected chefs probably, it becomes almost like a religion. You know, it's like some weird, a mythical thing that they all like dream of and aspire toward. So they connect over that. What, do you have any like overall thoughts here about Barati?
I do, but we haven't gotten to the part that I want to talk about.
What do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about Mihawk.
Let's talk about Mihawk.
It's so cool.
Yeah, we're also introduced. We find out later Mihawk is one of the 7 warlords of the sea, which are very powerful pirates that are kind of recognized officially by the government.
Are you okay? You're like really
I know.
gassy.
I think it's from like the coffee and all that stuff.
Do you need more water?
I'm okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry,
obviously, we're going to cut it out, but I'm like burping constantly. But
I'm worried about you.
I know. What are we talking about? Jesus. The 7 warlords of the sea are kind of recognized and able to kind of do their own thing. And in return, their role is to kind of cull the upcoming pirates to keep them from running out of control. It's like this very corrupt system where these pirates are able, and I think of the ones we've met so far, Mihawk seems like the most neutral, but in general they tend to kind of wreak havoc and they're overlooked by the government because they serve a purpose to also go after like the up and coming pirates to keep them in check and everything, which we'll get into a lot more later because that's getting into the politics of One Piece. But yeah, what did you want to say about Mihawk and Zoro?
Well, I think it's really cool that this character is introduced just because he represents like this sort of nuance to the whole situation they're in, where somebody very powerful coming up to, I guess, well, I feel like Zoro really challenges him first. Yeah. And Zoro just, he has so much respect as a swordsman, and I feel like Mihawk sees that. And I've talked about it before, and I think I just really like that. Like, there was no, like, brutal intentions in this fight.
Yeah.
It was more a test of swordsmanship, which I find super interesting. And Mihawk just looks so cool.
Yeah, very cool design.
Yeah, like, even his ship is cool.
I know. But that's interesting to point out that I think when he first fights with Zoro, he's using, like, this tiny dagger, and it feels like, he doesn't take him seriously. He's just like, who the fuck are you? You know, but then he sees how committed Zoro is and how he's willing to die instead of losing, because he feels like, you know, Zoro has this dream of being the best swordsman, and to achieve that, like, he cannot lose, he cannot turn his back, and Mihawk recognizes that drive and ambition, and so he earns his respect. Even though Zoro comes out of that kind of half dead with this, like, really nasty wound, Mihawk does leave him alive. And yeah, as you were saying, it introduces the idea that the world is very big. We have seen a very tiny portion of it, and seeing that difference in strength shows like how far we have to go in the story, you know?
Yeah.
Also, we're mentioning Krieg, this another one of the pirate antagonists with his whole crew. His whole thing is all about using whatever it takes to win, even if it means like attacking civilians or throwing up a white flag and then ambushing people. You know, it's all about that kind of treachery, which also goes against Luffy, who's very much like in your face, says exactly what's on his mind. Like, you know exactly what you're getting with him.
Yeah.
And yeah. Which of the Straw Hats do you think, and we can count Sanji in there because he joins by the end. Who do you think had the biggest impact in this arc?
Actually, I think I want to say Zoro.
Yeah.
I feel like I got to see more of Zoro, and I think I might say Zoro.
No, it checks because this is also when we get his flashback stuff.
Right.
So we get an idea of his backstory and what this means. He's not just doing this because he wants to be strong. He feels like he made a promise to Kawina, who he came up with. It was this girl who was the daughter of like the head of a sword school that he challenged, and she was beating his ass like every single day. Every time he challenged her, he could never topple her. And she wound up dying very young, which left Zoro feeling like very unfulfilled because he was never able to beat her. Mm-hmm. And also important to point out, she had this mentality that because she was a woman, she would never be able to be like this excellent top swordsman because she had been told, I guess, her whole life.
Oh, yeah. It's less of a mentality and just what her dad told her.
Something ingrained in her, which like facts.
Yeah.
Feels very authentic.
Yeah.
And you see Zoro like wrestling with that concept because she's able to beat him every single time. It's like, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. And you can see how Zoro, some of his worldview starts to come from this. But yeah, so I can agree with that. But then with the other major characters, we got Redfoot Zeph, we get Johnny and Yusaku, who are bounty hunters that knew Zoro, who kind of tag along for a little bit here. We get Patty and Karn. Is it Carne?
I want to say it's Carne.
Probably.
Like carne asada.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Patty and Carne, who are like the named cooks under Chef Zeph. We also get Krieg. We get Jin, his like right-hand man. We get Pearl, his ridiculous,
oh my gosh, so ridiculous,
stupid officer. Like the worst character design so far. I'm sorry. Like I just can't take him seriously at all. And then of course we get Mihawk. So, I mean, who do you choose?
I mean, who do you think I choose?
Yeah, it's Mihawk. I know. As soon as I said it, you can't beat Mihawk.
Yeah.
I feel like he's another fan favorite. He's just very cool character.
He's very cool.
But that takes us into Arlong Park. This is the one, we've said this a lot, but it's true. Arlong Park is seen as like the big milestone that everything up till now is kind of like building up to this, and Arlong Park is the first major arc that kind of sets in stone a lot of the One Piece staples. You know, we have the big villain who is constantly being built up as like just being a real piece of shit. You know, he's like really, really awful, but also just so strong that nobody can really do anything about him. So you get this buildup of just being so enraged and wanting this guy to get his ass kicked so bad, and knowing like Luffy is the one to do it, and you just can't wait to see it the whole time. We also get some amazing flashbacks. I think some of the best in the series so far with Nami's whole backstory. Mm-hmm. Very emotional. I think it is impossible to watch the whole buildup of her character during this arc and the reveal of everything that she's been through. Like, you cannot watch that and not get emotional. I'm sorry. It's just impossible.
Yeah.
And we get like the final walk to the final confrontation, you know, the dramatic like Tarantino style walk.
Yeah.
We also get the celebration afterwards. So I mean, it hits like all the big One Piece notes. And like I said, it's regarded in the community as like, when you get through Arlong Park, you're going to be in love with the series. Like, it's kind of just, it is what it is. Quickly, this whole arc involves Nami running off with the merry-go and all their money kind of disappearing. They go after her. Luffy never gives up, just believing in her and thinking like there's more to this story. They discover Arlong Park, which is run by the Fishman pirates led by Arlong, who have kind of subjugated this whole area and force all these villages in the area to pay them money, like mafia style, for quote unquote protection money, you know? Yeah. But the idea is if they don't pay, then the whole village gets wiped out. We learned that Nami, when she was very young, she was adopted by Elmer, who was a Navy soldier that found her and her sister Nojiko on a battlefield, raised them up. They didn't have a lot of money, so when Arlong came along, she gave every penny that she had to protect the two of them and lost her life in the process. Mm-hmm. And Nami winds up joining the Arlong pirates in order to help save the village, because Nami is shown as being extremely talented at drawing like sea charts and navigating and stuff, which the Arlong pirates can make use of. And Nami forms a deal with Arlong that if she can save up 100 million berries, she can buy her village back. But we learn through this arc that this was a trick, that Arlong never intended to allow this to happen. When she's getting close to having enough money, Arlong sends in Nizumi, the little mouse Navy guy, who he has this like very corrupt relationship with Arlong where he gets kickbacks from Arlong, and Arlong tips him off to Nami's money that she's been saving. So Nizumi's able to confiscate it all, which sets Nami all the way back to zero. And this leads up to the big confrontation when, after being broken down so much, because up till now she is trying to scare off the Straw Hats and make them realize, like, listen, I was in Arlong's crew this whole time, I tricked you, yada yada. Luffy doesn't listen to any of that. And after being broken down and set back to zero like this, that's when she finally reaches out to Luffy for help, and Luffy, without batting an eye, is like, of course. Mm-hmm. And that's when they set off, fight the Arlong pirates in their first like real fight where they're really putting their lives on the line, come out victorious, celebrate, and Nami is able to formally join the crew. So what do you have anything you want to talk about from this arc?
I mean, like I said in the actual episode of Arlong Park, this really helped me like process some grief in a very weird way. So I really love this arc because of that, too. I mean, also in spite of it, I mean, it's hard to watch just because of that. Yeah. But, yeah.
I mean, the part where Nami finally breaks down and asks for help, I have looked that up on YouTube so many times just to, like, relive it because it's such a powerful moment. And I think that's common.
I know this is probably a stretch, and we could probably cut this if
go for
not.
It.
But I really feel like that scene in itself is such a big, like, commitment to consent and, like...
Sure.
Not even just, I'm going to talk about sexual consent, but I just mean consent in general. Like, if somebody wants your help, they'll ask for it, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And it's... I feel like there's a lot of respect there, too. It's like, she really, for years, was doing, you know, as good as she could on her own, and trying to pull this off to save her town, but when she knew she really, like, the chips were down and she really needed help, like, Luffy was there, so...
Yeah, that's extremely valid, because I think on the one part, it does show one of the important themes of the show is you know, Luffy, and he does this in this arc, he makes it clear that on his own, he can't really do anything. Mm-hmm. Like, he's relying on his crew, and he knows this, and it's part of why he cares about and respects his crew so much. Mm-hmm. And Nami kind of had to learn this the hard way, you know, that sometimes you gotta depend on other people for help.
Yeah.
But also on the topic of consent, I think that's super valid too, because we also saw in Bharati how the chefs at Bharati wanted Sanji to join Luffy and told Luffy to take him, and Luffy was just like, no, like, I'm not taking him unless he wants to join me. And here, Luffy shows up, no matter how much he tries to get rid of him, he just hangs around, doesn't even try to, like, convince her of anything. It's just, like, just kind of waiting.
Yeah.
And even when they're being told her whole backstory, he's not interested. He just walks away.
Yeah.
he's just like patiently kind of just hanging out on the island until we get to the moment when Nami really needs him and asks for help. And then without a moment of doubt, Luffy is just immediately like, yep, let's go. Yeah. And like leaves his hat with her and walks off to solve the problem. So that is an important thing to point out, I think. For me, obviously we got the big emotional highs here, but also we get like a lot of the fight scenes before this, there's not a lot at stake. Not I don't want to put it that way. It's more that it never feels like Luffy's in danger, you know? Even with Krieg, he gets pretty beat up there, but it's kind of self-inflicted because he just hurls himself at him over and over just to show that like how unstoppable that his resolve is. But this is the first time we get a one-on-one fight with all the officers, you know, versus the officers of the Arlong Pirates. We get the big confrontation with Arlong that's difficult. We see Luffy get like legitimately injured during this fight. So it winds up being this like very exciting kind of finale where everyone has to step up and put their lives on the line. And for me, like Usopp's big moment, as silly as his character is, and the way he beats him by just hitting with a hammer over and over again, that moment where he realizes like he can't just keep running away, he has to stand up and fight like his life depended on it, just like everyone else is. Yeah, I think that hits really hard. Is there anything else you wanted to point out here?
Just in general?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, of course I love Belmer's story too with Nami.
Yeah.
You know, I know it goes hand in hand with the grief and everything, but it's interesting to see where Nami comes from.
Yeah, it's funny because you can see Belmer is like very similar.
Yeah.
The way that she like will jokingly kind of use her body, her feminine wiles to get what she wants, and Nami just like laughs, and you see how she kind of took after that.
Yeah.
And just the fact that Belmer is like, you could tell she's like a very kind-hearted person. I mean, just the fact she took these two children in, even though she can barely feed herself.
Yeah.
But she's also like extremely tough and someone that you don't want to fuck around with.
Yeah.
It gives us a lot of insight into Nami's character. I think this is a pretty easy one, but which Straw Hat do you think had like the biggest impact this arc?
I want to say Nami.
I think that's the obvious one.
Yeah.
She definitely getting that look at her backstory. And she is the emotional center of this whole arc. It's no denying her importance here. But when we get to the other major characters, we have Genzo. He's the headsman. I think I've seen since we recorded that he's kind of like a cop, basically. Okay. But he's very close to Nami and is one of the people like really looking out for the village. We have Nako, who's the doctor. Pretty minor role. We have Nojiko, Nami's sister, Belmer, of course. We have Nezumi, the mouse navy guy. We have Arlong, his officers, Hachi, Karubi, and Shu. And I think that's all of them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, who of those do you think really stood out this arc?
Belmer.
Yeah, that's another one. It's pretty obvious.
If it wasn't Belmer, it'd be Genzo. But
For sure. But that brings us to the final arc. I do want to mention, I call it Logue Town all the time. I think it's because in the official manga, it's called Rogue Town. But when I was listening back to the English dub to get sound bites, they were calling it Log Town.
Okay.
Which fits with like epilogue, prologue. We talked about that. So I think it might actually be called Log Town, but whatever. We're not experts. We've made that very clear, even though I call myself a fake One Piece expert. So I guess we could just call it Log Town. Log Town, very short epilogue to the East Blue. It's where they head there for supplies before actually hitting the Grand Line for real. It's also the town where Gold Roger, the previous king of the pirates, was born and also where he was executed. So Luffy kind of fanboys out and wants to take in the sights like a little pirate tourist to see where Gold Roger was born and met his end. This is a kind of cool down arc where it's like not a lot of stakes or anything. Mostly characters just shopping and kind of hanging out as they get ready to embark on the Grand Line. But we also get introduced to Smoker and Tashigi, who are, I think, the first real Navy characters who are more leaning toward like the good side You know, like they're still in opposition to the Straw Hats because they are in the Navy, and the Navy's there to deal with the pirates. But they seem to be like good characters who are in it for like the right reasons. But this is when Luffy gets his first bounty, the 30 million berry bounty. He's finally recognized after taking down Arlong. So they wind up getting targeted by the Navy here. They also get targeted by Buggy and Alvida, who pop up again to try and get revenge. And this is when we see Alvida ate the slip fruit or smooth fruit or whatever you want to call it, which made her like super beautiful somehow. And we also get introduced to Dragon, this mysterious figure who saves them as they escape the island and head to the Grand Line. So, I mean, overall, what do you think of this arc?
I mean, it's a fun arc because I think I like hearing about Gold Roger a lot. And, you know, like the Gold Roger bar that was there too. Was that canon or was that filler?
That was filler, but
I did like that though.
It fits, yeah.
I liked that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, he's a very central character to the story, which is interesting since he died like long before the story really starts. But it's what inspires Luffy to make himself the king of the pirates. I think, this is when we get our first introduction to some filler stuff, which is not great, not like really high quality, but whatever. I mean, this whole arc feels like much more light than the previous ones. I kind of like this. We've talked about this a little in the episode. I always like when we take the time after like a big serious moment to kind of just chill for a minute. And, it winds up giving us a lot of interesting exposition, lighthearted side stories. We also get a look at a bunch of the other characters we met, like when his bounty's announced, it shows like the reactions of all these other characters.
Yeah, that was nice.
I love seeing that. I love checking back and showing that we have this big world out there where life is continuing even after the Straw Hats leave. You know, it adds a lot to the world building. Was there anything else you wanted to say about this?
I think I really like the moment where time kind of loops back around and Luffy is on this execution platform.
Oh, yeah.
Like Gold Roger was. I thought that was kind of neat.
Yeah, and he uses it as his opportunity to declare he wants to be king of the pirates.
Yeah.
And also has that big smile on his face as he's getting ready to die, which doesn't happen without being noticed by Smoker. Also introduced to the idea that there are different types of devil fruits, which is interesting. And we see that these Logia devil fruits are like incredibly powerful. Kind of opens the door to like the different possibilities of devil fruits in the world, which I know when I was reading, I was very excited to see when we got to the Grand Line, like what other devil fruits there are, you know? We'll probably have to rank devil fruits at some point too. Yeah. That'll be fun. Who then do you think of the Straw Hats had the biggest impact here?
I feel like Luffy.
Luffy, yeah.
Just with everything with Gold Roger and everything.
Oh, totally agree with that. And for the major characters, really all we get introduced to here are Smoker, Tashigi, who we didn't really talk about. She's the swordsman operating under Smoker, who looks just like Kawina from Zoro's childhood. And we get introduced to Dragon, who gets a very brief intro. Well, which of those characters stood out to you?
I mean, I guess Smoker. I mean...
Smoker's very cool.
Yeah, and also how he has nuance to himself, how, he helped that little girl.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't... He's in the Navy, yes, kind of a bad guy, but also maybe not. I don't know.
You get the idea. We talked in that episode a lot about the morality of One Piece, but you do get the idea that Luffy and Smoker would probably get along and fight on the same side when, if their backs were against the wall.
Yeah.
But they're on the other side of this kind of social structure that exists between like the pirates and the Navy that feels very like rigid. So that wraps up all the arcs. I think to finish this part off, there were a couple things that I want to talk about just quickly, because I think we didn't have a lot of chance to talk about these in the episodes. One thing I thought was really interesting in the anime is the way they translate the way characters laugh and like mannerisms and speech that are in the manga where it's like spelled out a certain way, and you see the voice actors giving them a ton of credit, like the voice actors and the anime directors.
The Japanese voice actors.
Yeah, specifically. But the way they translate this stuff to the screen, you know, like Nezumi and his little laugh, it's written as like chi chi chi, and you see the way the voice actor is like chi chi chi,
it's
like
perfect.
This little mouse laugh.
Yeah.
And of course Chow Chow and his little bark. And this is something that's like another One Piece staple that's going to pop up more later, because there's characters who have really weird mannerisms with like how they talk, and seeing the voice actors try to portray that is very interesting.
Yeah.
Also really want to call out the soundtrack, because holy shit, like
it's so good.
It's one of the best things in One Piece is the music is like insanely good.
Yeah.
Like there's so many iconic themes, and listen, I know this is like a total weeb thing, but I definitely find myself listening to the soundtrack just in my regular day-to-day life, which I'm not the kind of person to really do that.
That's not true.
What do you mean?
Oh, come on. There's so many movie soundtracks that we listen. We still have Baby Driver in the car.
That's different. That's like licensed songs.
And Drive.
You know?
Drive. We use the soundtrack for Drive on our wedding.
But those are all like licensed, like actual songs. What I mean is like symphonic, like soundtracks that are like made for, like orchestral soundtracks that are made for stuff. Like I'm nothing against it. I've never been someone to like really listen to like video game soundtracks and anime soundtracks. Like there's stuff here and there, but One Piece is like, goddamn, like
it is good.
Banger after banger. It's so good. And I didn't even know how to talk about this, but another thing that has been driving me crazy because it's so weird is the wind sound effect. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
There's this weird like ambient wind sound that happens a lot.
Yeah.
Which I can remember when we were first watching it feeling like, what the fuck is that sound? Because it does that often. I don't even know how to like explain this.
I will just put it in, I guess.
But like, is it something that stands out to other people? Because I remember it just weirding me out so much.
I don't think it's weirded me out as much as it's weirding you out.
It's just strange because it's this like very distinct ambient sound that pops up a lot.
Well, if we're talking
really
about
sticks out
ambient sounds, I really love the like cicada ambient sound.
I mean, that's like a Japanese thing.
I love
in general.
that so much.
Yeah. I think the only other things to tackle before we get into the second part of this podcast, I wanted to first of all decide which so when we talk about the major arc here, Arlong, let's talk about which crew member, not outside of Luffy, do you think had like the best fight? Remember we had Zoro fighting Hachi, we had Sanji fighting Karubi, and we had Usopp fighting Chu. So of those three, what do you think was like the most effective fight?
See, I don't know if I'd go off of effectiveness. For me, it's more like memorable.
Yeah,
would be Usopp.
Put it that way.
Yeah.
Most memorable. I actually agree, and I think again, it's one of the interesting things about One Piece because it isn't much of a fight.
No.
You know, as far as like fight choreography goes.
Yeah.
Maybe this is also just us being older and having a different perspective. I
don't know.
But I do think like the setup and the way it builds his character.
Yeah.
I think that definitely hit a lot harder because Zoro and Sanji, their fights are more interesting from like a choreography and excitement kind of perspective, I guess. But Usopp's did feel more like emotionally impactful. Mm-hmm. So I'd agree with that. Let's also try and figure out the star players of the East Blue Saga.
Okay.
So, as a reminder, we said of the Straw Hats, in Romance Dawn, we said Zoro was the standout, Orange Town was Luffy, Sierra Village was Luffy, Barati was Zoro, Arlong Park was Nami, and Rogue Town, Luffy. Which one, if you had to think back, it doesn't even have to be based on what we chose, because obviously we picked Luffy the most, which, I mean, it's the first introduction of the character. There's a lot of character development being done here, a lot of ground being laid. But which character stood out the most in this saga for you?
If I'm not choosing Luffy because Luffy feels like the obvious answer. I'd probably say Nami.
I agree. Yeah, I think Nami, just based on Arlong Park alone, really, because I think before that there is a lot of interesting build-up where we see there's something going on with her, learning she hates pirates. She's like very reluctant to join them and everything. That build-up through the whole saga and then the payoff at the end was super effective. So I agree with you. But let's talk about the other major characters. So Romance Dawn, we picked Kobe. Orange Town, we picked Shanks. Syrup Village, we picked Kaya. Barati, we picked Mihawk. Arlong Park was Belmare. And Logtown was Smoker. Who stood out the most of like the major side characters?
I mean, it's Shanks.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's fair.
For me,
Very
it's
fair.
Shanks. Like, he's like the core of this,
Very
basically.
fair.
If it weren't for Shanks, there'd be no Luffy.
And he's just a cool character.
He is a cool
We've talked
character.
about how he's very similar to Luffy in that like he is seen as being like very badass, someone you really do not want to fuck around with, but with the flip of a switch, he becomes like very silly, and even his own crew kind of makes fun of him and stuff. Very similar to Luffy, so you can see where he kind of gets that from.
I also love that Shanks is with Yasopp and Luffy is with Usopp. I think that's very cool.
That's fate.
Yeah.
And the fact that he, early on sacrificed his whole arm to save Luffy, I think says a lot about him as a character. Finally, as far as the ranking stuff goes, the reminder that the way we ranked the arcs during East Blue Saga, we had Arlong Park at number 1, we had Barati at number 2, Logtown at number 3, Orange Town at number 4, Romance Dawn at number 5, and Syrup Village at number 6. Do you still feel good about this?
Yeah, I think so.
I feel good too. I just think this will be interesting. We could probably post this stuff online with this episode, but I think going forward, we're going to be able to start compiling like a much bigger list of all this and comparing stuff between sagas and everything. Might be interesting to somebody. I don't know. But we're trying to set up stuff we could do at the end of every saga. And on that note, I have one more question before we wrap it up, which I'm going to ask you every time.
Okay.
What is the One Piece?
I have no idea. I have no idea at all.
You don't have any kind of prediction?
No, I mean, maybe like a treasure, but I feel like that's too obvious. I feel like it can't just be a treasure.
Yeah.
I feel like it probably is something a little bit more special than that. I don't know.
It is funny how vague it is. I mean, it's literally called One Piece, which tells you nothing at all. And everybody's trying to get their hands on it, but you have no fucking clue what it is.
Yeah, but I'm like also okay with it too.
Yeah, I think it's interesting.
I'm like completely content not knowing what it is.
It is a great like way to structure this series, that you introduce something like that is so vague that everyone is trying to get.
It's literally the name of the show.
Yes. And everyone is trying to get this thing, and you have no fucking idea what it is. It's great. But I'm going to ask you that after every saga.
Okay.
So we'll see if your answer ever changes.
Are there like context clues within the series that
I think there's little things. I mean, Jesus.
I like obviously have not gotten it yet.
Listen, there is a whole world in the One Piece fandom that's just all about like theory crafting, this kind of stuff. I want to stay far away from that because I think that's just not what we do.
No.
But this is something we can talk about as time goes on. So overall, I think it's safe to say you're kind of hooked, right? You've gotten the brain rot that I have, which is fantastic because we said in the beginning, the hard thing about getting into something like this big is if you have a spouse, you kind of have to go on this journey together, or else I would just be locked in the basement all day watching One Piece by myself. So I'm very happy that you're also into it enough that you'll sit here and talk to me about it for a while every week. So I think we are in this for the long haul. I'm very excited to keep going, see where things are going. I mean, obviously I know where it's going, but seeing it animated and everything, we again talked about that seeing it in animation with the voice acting, with the music and everything, it elevates it so much. And I'm glad they really took the care to, instead of condensing it, because I think that's the American way of doing things, is to like condense the adaptation as much as possible.
Yeah. Well,
which
pump it out to make more money. I mean, that's the American way.
But also, I mean, thinking about like the One Piece live action, which hasn't come out yet, the way that's kind of the standard way to do it, to condense this whole thing into like 10 episodes. But I'm glad that for this anime, they really took the time to adapt every single thing pretty much from the manga. It's great, and I'm happy to be on the journey. You know, it feels exciting. Just to set things up, I do think I want to rank the sagas the way we rank the arcs. And I want to rank the opening themes, because we have this like one song. They changed it up for Logtown, but I think in general the sagas each have like a different opening theme, which is another like anime trope. So I want to rank those against each other later on. But I think that wraps up the East Blue Saga for us. I wanted to separate this out because I know there's probably some people that are just interested in the One Piece stuff. And if you're interested in hearing more about making the podcast for us, that's what we're going to get into next. But we can kind of wrap up the One Piece side here and remind everyone we're going to take a little break to do some like side piece episodes with more modern anime movies. But when we get back with the Arabasta saga, which I still don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, we'll figure that out. The first arc is Reverse Mountain, which is episodes 61 through 63 and chapters 101 through 105 of the manga. Episodes 54 through 61 are filler. It's the Warship Island arc. We're going to be skipping those and just jumping right into Reverse Mountain. But you can catch us, I guess, in a couple weeks. Do you want to plug the socials here?
I guess. Yeah. I mean, we're a Straw Hat Social Club everywhere. If you do have an anime movie that you want us to watch, you can email us at strawhatsocialclub@gmail.com.
Yep. So follow us, like us, all that stuff matters. We really appreciate everybody who's listening. Well, yeah, that wraps up that part. So, if you're still here, I did want to talk a bit about making the podcast, because we are just two regular ass people who never done anything like this before. We've said it a bunch that we're antisocial. We can tend to just kind of keep to ourselves at home all day. And so making something where we are forced to talk into a microphone for a while is like, it's really out of our element.
Yeah.
But we are both like very creative people, and we have tried doing other projects together in the past that just, for whatever reason, like didn't work out too well. You know, like I got into making games, taught myself how to program, and you were trying to help out, but it's not really your cup of tea, like making sprite art and stuff. I think that was like a whole thing. So that didn't work. I mean, and I didn't want to push you, because I didn't expect you to like fully learn this.
I mean, I would have, but we dropped the project.
But that just didn't feel like it was a good match of our talents. You know?
And we both had full-time jobs at the time. Yeah. And on top of, I think at that time, I was between working at, it was either Sephora, Starbucks, or Ulta, I don't know, all of those. It was just hard. Yeah, and I had to give it up because that was when the pandemic hit, and my job in grocery like blew up. And mine, I got laid off. Yeah. So that just didn't work out. But it also just felt like our talents didn't mesh on that, I think. But there's been, it's other things where I feel like as creative people, I've definitely learned, you know, as you get older, unless you really work at it and pursue it, it's easy to just kind of walk away from that stuff. You've always stuck with, you know, your drawing and everything. And I've tried to support that because you are so unbelievably talented. But for me, I don't know, I just couldn't really fit that stuff into my life. And I always felt like when I did, like when I was working on making games, it just feels so fulfilling to do something creative, to like direct that energy at something. So I've always wanted to keep at something like that, and being able to do it with you especially has been super fulfilling. And for whatever reason, this is the thing that like really worked out. Because I know you wanted to do a podcast much earlier than I was like on board. And it just felt like One Piece is such a commitment.
and it's something I care about so much and want to talk about so much that it just made sense to make a podcast like this about it.
Yeah.
And again, being able to be creative and actually work on something together has just been so fulfilling that even if this doesn't go anywhere, like just the process of making it, it's like filling this gap that was missing for me. You know, I don't know how you feel about it.
I definitely feel that because right before the pandemic hit, I just came off of working on a feature film, and I had a blast. I had so much fun.
Yeah.
It was with a bunch of my friends from college, and I don't know, it was just such this, like, it felt like when I was on set, I felt like this is where I'm meant to be. I'm meant to be here. I'm meant to be working on this project. I'm meant to be pulling 12-hour days. But the thing is I could pull a 12-hour day on set, feel exhausted, but also so fulfilled. I could work a 6-hour shift at Starbucks, and I don't want to talk to anybody. It's awful. And also just shout out to my manager at Starbucks who made it possible for me to take off work so that I could work on that film. I still, to this day, I'm so thankful. Yeah, I'm so thankful for her. It was such a cool experience. But yeah, when the pandemic hit, I became a germaphobe. A germaphobe I had never been in my life.
Well, you'd already had your own issues with anxiety and everything, so I think it made sense.
Yeah, and I got so scared about spreading it to my parents. I declined a lot of offers to go on set because I was doing special effects and makeup artistry at the time. So it really sucked. I could feel like, what am I going to do now? Like, that was so exciting and fun, and now I can't do it anymore. So I really pulled myself back into art again, which I wouldn't say I took a break, but I definitely was not as disciplined with it as I had been in the past, just because of other things that had happened in my life.
Yeah.
So it's nice to be able to work on this project with you, where I get to be creative and make designs and, fan art. Like, I love doing fan art.
Yeah.
So it's nice to find my place there. I mean, I was, through the pandemic, working on my skills with art and everything. It's been nice to have these small opportunities. Like, I got lucky enough to have a small opportunity with Smosh a couple months ago, probably several months ago now.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun collaborating with them. So I'm just getting little glimpses of how I really can incorporate my art into the film world still. Still have a little bit of attachment to it. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's tough, but I think that's been part of the journey is, you having so much talent. And I think anyone listening to this, you can see, I mean, she designs custom artwork for every single episode and they're all amazing. But finding a way to fit that into a job and make money is really hard.
Yes.
So it's kind of
especially now.
Yeah. But it is kind of fuck it, let's just do it ourselves.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's I don't want to speak for you, but it is nice to do this kind of stuff for yourself, instead of being at the mercy of what somebody else wants you to do and what they're willing to pay you for and yada, yada. Yeah, I guess that's a good segue into talking a little bit about our process for anyone that's interested, because generally, I think the way we kind of rely on each other's talents is we obviously watch the episodes, then I sit down and I write out notes. I do the way I do it now is I'll just write my own recap of every episode to make sure I hit all the big story points. This is going to be more challenging going forward when the arcs get a lot longer. I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to handle that. But then I have general notes with trivia and thoughts just to keep us on track so that when we're recording, I am able to stay kind of focused. So my end of things tends to be before we record, and then during recording, I think I'm kind of, trying to lead the conversation. Yeah. But then after that, you are the one who does 99% of the editing. I do try to pull sound bites for you because we went through a weird phase of figuring out like the English voice acting was like so bad that it was like, I don't know how much we want to do this, but I do think it's fun to insert these scenes that we're talking about.
There's that, and we've had so many people say we love the sound bites. So it's like, okay, we have to do the sound bites now.
Yeah, so I'm trying to help you out by pulling those, but then you're the one editing, inserting the music and the sound bites and all that stuff, and of course doing all the episode art, and you're also managing like social media. So you seem to be handling more of the like artistic creative side, and I'm doing the more, because I'm much more of a structured like practical type person. I think that's been like the theme of our relationship. So I kind of create the structure, you provide the artistic spin. I think we work really well together in that way. But yeah, as far as making these episodes, I think something that has given me some anxiety is like, personally, I am really unhappy with the first episode, the Romance Dawn episode. Yeah, I think that's something I've been carrying because I think we were really out of our depth at that point.
That's fair.
And listening back, it felt like very rigid. It felt like I was very low energy, which I think in general, that's just me. So it's like there's only so much that I could do about that. But it does kind of, it sucks because it feels like people who might discover this and get into it, I'm worried about people falling off after that episode.
Yeah.
But, I mean, not much we can do about that at this point. But just so anyone listening understands, like when we first sat down to record, I had like these notes written up, but once we sat down and we're in front of a microphone and have to be like on, for people like us who are not on people, it became overwhelming like very quickly. Like it was very quickly like, oh shit, like I don't know if we can do this, like that kind of thing. And I remember having this moment of panic of feeling like, shit, I thought this was going to be way more like chill and easy, but it's like when you're actually sitting down and doing it, I think it's a lot more difficult than you might think. Maybe if you're like super extroverted, it's different.
Yeah.
But for us, it was really, really difficult. And I remember like after that moment of panic, I sat down on the keyboard and just started writing a script. And it took me like 10 or 15 minutes. I wrote up a whole script.
Yeah,
I remember you being like, holy shit.
I was very impressed.
But it was because that was that like do or die panic moment where I felt like if we can't figure this out and do this, we're never going to.
I had no idea that you were feeling that.
I was completely panicking.
I
was like
no
sweating.
Idea.
Yeah. But I wrote up a whole script. And so the first few episodes, this was really like Romance Dawn, Orangetown, and Syrup Village. I had a script that I was reading from, but I had like breaks for us to talk about stuff. And it worked. It made it flow more easily because I wasn't stuck, trying to think of what to say on the spot. But I do feel like it wound up being like really rigid. And so with what really changed it for me was when we were doing Side Piece. Side Piece was way more laid back with us just talking. And I remember when I was listening to the Side Piece stuff, because I was feeling pretty down about the podcast at that point. When I listened to Spirited Away, it felt so much more relaxed and natural and fun that I was like, oh, like, yeah, we can do this. So it's just a way of finding like how to keep that energy while, doing a recap of the show that's more thorough.
Yeah.
So we have developed more of a structure around that so that I haven't been reading off the script, so we're just talking and stuff. And it makes it probably a little tougher to edit. Yeah,
honestly,
it's a little messier.
Nothing will be as hard as that first episode that I...
Oh, yeah.
Like, it was just so hard. I was trying to figure it out. I had very minimal editing experience, only like a couple things I'd done in college, and some, advice that I had gotten over the years from friends who do editing as their career. Yeah. So I was lucky enough to have those skills like ingrained already from those days. But
well, that was part of it too, is you were figuring that out, and now like you have become so much better, because even recently we ran into a problem where we pre-recorded a whole bunch of episodes and then we got kind of lazy and hit a point where we were like, going up against these deadlines, which we're trying to fix now. So I actually stepped in to edit the Ninja Scroll episode. But even that, I had to be like, all right, you fix the sound levels and put the music in, because I don't know how to do all that. So you've really grown a lot, I think, in a short period of time, gotten really good at it.
I don't know about good, but I've gotten a little faster.
I think you're good. Listening back to them, I think our conversations are better. I think the editing is better. I definitely think we've improved a lot over time. But I've always said, your artistic talent, I think if you apply it to anything, it's going to shine through at some point. And I
very nice.
Mean that. But yeah, it has been a journey. And I also remember early on, like, we both had so much anxiety around sitting down to do this, because it felt good like after the fact, but it was one of those things where I think we would get too in our heads leading up to it, because as people who don't talk a ton, doing this, I mean, it's so out of our element and out of our comfort zone that I think we would spook ourselves, too much beforehand. And it was to the point where when we were recording, we would be like holding hands and stuff because we were so anxious.
Yeah.
And I do think in the early episodes it comes through in the recording how
really?
Anxious we are.
Oh
yeah.
God, I don't want to listen back.
I know it sucks. That's like I said, that's the thing I worry about is for people getting into it, because I do think we've gotten a lot more comfortable as we've kept doing it and developed confidence and all that. And I think we're just going to keep getting better from here.
Yeah, I hope so.
But even now, we struggle. You had a little moment during this episode.
I have a moment almost every episode. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah. It's okay. I mean, it's putting ourselves out here like this it's a lot, especially for us. So I understand,
And like, I don't want to like dunk on, the amount of people who are following and listening, because I'm not. I'm very appreciative, but I'm also like so appreciative that it's only this, handful right now. It keeps us in this like little bubble, and I'm trying to, the more and more the views go up and everything, which is great, it's also like super anxiety inducing.
Yeah, I guess we can just fully say that like we're in this weird zone where obviously we're not getting a ton of people listening, but it's enough like outside of people we know that it's like, oh, there are people actually downloading and listening to this. So it is like this weird little bit of pressure, which is good and bad. I think on the good side, it is like motivating to keep doing it, knowing that like, well, we're not getting a ton of feedback and stuff, but we are getting some metrics, some numbers.
Yeah.
So it's like more encouragement to keep going.
I will say, like, there was 1 week where we thought we were not going to be able to release the episode, which ended up happening because of the power outage. Like, I actually was like, well, what if somebody's ready for the next episode? I felt so bad.
I know.
Like, someone's ready to hear part 2 of Our Long Park, and we can't put it up.
That's why we released that, like, tiny little clip just to let people know, because we didn't want people to think... Because we're still pretty early. We didn't want anyone to be like, oh, I guess they stopped releasing episodes or something. Because consistency is important, I think, especially starting out. We want people to be able to rely on a weekly release.
Yeah.
But we are trying to, like, we're trying to get ahead of ourselves here and, like, record more stuff in advance, get it edited so that we're not, like, coming up against deadlines. So that if something like that happens again, we'll have the episode ready to go. Yeah, it's been a journey.
Yeah.
But I think, as I said, even though I definitely still have anxiety around this, and you obviously still have a lot of anxiety around it, we are still having fun, enjoying it, right?
Well, yeah, I love you were sure.
Well, I have to check in. I feel like I have to check in with you a lot to make sure.
No, I like doing it. I think, at times it's overwhelming, but I still have fun with it.
I'm happy to be doing something like this with you collaboratively, because I love and respect you so much and love just being able to do everything with you. So it's nice having something. It's almost like creating a legacy, because this is going to be on the internet forever. We can always listen back on this.
Yeah. You're going to make me cry.
Sorry. But I do think like it'll probably be fun many years from now, being able to like listen back and hear like where we were at in our lives and everything, I think it's gonna be a lot. I'm really happy that we're doing this.
Yeah, me too.
So I don't know, was there anything else you want to talk about on this subject?
I don't think so. I think, as I said before, like, yes, when the views go up, it scares me and also is motivating. I get that. But I think the one thing I'm excited for is if we ever start to make money, we can hire an editor.
Yeah, that's like the big dream, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the last thing I wanted to say that I almost forgot about is like, I did want to mention one of the other challenges for me with figuring this stuff out is like, I wonder, this is getting really deep. I don't know if we'll keep this in the podcast, but I know when I was younger, I went through a period where like, I mean, I think a lot of kids do this where they're just kind of fucking chatterboxes, and when they like something, they'll just talk about it.
Yeah.
And I would definitely do that about like video games and stuff. And I hit a point as I was getting older where I got really self-conscious about it and started talking less. And this is probably, I've gone through a lot of introspection lately. Might be like a midlife crisis. I don't know, but have thought about how I might be on the spectrum. And I think when I was younger, especially, we don't need to go into all that here, but there's a lot of stuff that made me wonder about that. And I will fully say, for a lot of my life, if I was really into something, there were times when I would be by myself, just talking to myself about stuff like this, like going in depth, just, I don't know how to describe it, but it was something that felt like a really nice and fulfilling, because it felt like if I was talking to somebody else like this, I would just be talking their head off and boring the shit out of them. And I don't know if it's a part of being like fixated on stuff, because I feel like a lot of people on the spectrum get very fixated.
Well, yeah,
on
I mean,
a lot
ADHD,
of fictional, stuff like this. And I do remember when we first started dating, like there were a lot of big moments that made me feel like, okay, I think she might be the one. And one of them was,
oh God.
This is very funny to talk about. I don't know if you remember, there was a time we went out to eat at a restaurant and we started talking about Game of Thrones.
I remember that.
And
distinctly.
You were like really into the show. I mean, it's so funny because it's like this, where you were really into the show. I was really into the books and not really the show. And we just started talking about it. And I started going into like stuff that they changed in the show. And I probably spent like 2 hours talking your fucking head off about this stuff. And the thing that stood out to me was the whole time you seemed so attentive and interested in everything I was saying. Never seemed like you were bored or wanted me to shut up. But it's like, it's a weird thing of like being able to talk about stuff like that you're really passionate about with someone and share that with someone, and they are legitimately interested in it. There's something about that just feels so good, And that's what this podcast is. Like in a lot of ways, it's me talking to you about One Piece and you just kind of being there for it and joining in the conversation. It feels great.
I distinctly remember that because it was our 6-month anniversary.
Yeah.
And I remember being so like, I don't even know what the word is. I was like, just so like happy to hear you so like interested and talking about a subject that you really cared about, and like I couldn't get enough of it. I was so happy to sit there the whole time, and I think about that from time to time because that was such a like special day for me. I really loved that. It felt like you wanted to open up and talk about these things, and I was just ready to listen.
Well, it's really meaningful when you find somebody who does want to hear that kind of stuff from you, like, I don't know how to even put that into words, but I noticed and it meant a lot because it's like I said, I went through being that way, feeling like I was just bothering and boring people. So just stopping and becoming very quiet and introverted for a very long time. And then being able to geek out and open up to you, it meant a lot. And it's one of many reasons why I think we're still together and why I love you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is just the beginning. I mean, we've been on an interesting journey at this point. I don't even know how many episodes we have at this point. But
yeah, I don't know.
It's a lot. I didn't know how long we would stick to this. But we've come pretty far, and I'm hoping we stick with this for a long time to come.
Yeah, me too.
So I guess that's it, unless there was anything else you wanted to really talk about here.
I don't really think so. I know I say that a lot, but like I truly like I don't think I have anything else to add.
Yeah, this one's going longer than I expected, but we got a lot to we had a lot to talk about, so.
Yeah.
So, and I guess that was all me building up to, the structure of the One Piece recap, how I think there's just something in me that wants to be like super thorough and go into like so much detail, and I'm going to have to find a way to reckon with that going forward, because I don't want the episodes have been getting longer and longer, and I want to kind of trim it down a bit. It's just something for us to figure out, but just giving you a look at like part of why that's happening is just part of my brain and how it works. But we're still learning. We're still figuring it out, and we have plenty more to get through. So that's it for the East Blue Saga. And when we come back, we're gonna, like I've said before, we're gonna take a break, watch some more modern stuff. We're definitely still gonna be going back to our childhood. There's plenty of stuff for us to talk about there.
I mean, for you.
Well, yeah, but it'll be fun being able to, guide you through all that stuff, introduce all that stuff to you. And we still have over 900 episodes of One Piece left, so plenty more to do. But yeah, this has been Straw Hat Social Club. So catch us with the next saga. I don't know how to end it. We already kind of ended it.
We already did the socials because I think we're assuming a lot of people are not going to listen to this part. So I don't know.
Yeah.
If you're here, thanks.
Yeah. You're the true fans.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess that's it. Love you all. Thank you so much for listening. Been through a lot and got a lot left to go through. So hope you're going to stick with us and catch us next week. Oh.
What?
I'm Todd.
Oh, I'm Becca.
And this has been Straw Hat Social Club.